Hello, my name is Patrick Jenkins, candidate for Superintendent. I would first like to thank you for the opportunity to present my vision for building and rebuilding trust for our East Baton Rouge Parish School System and the East Baton Rouge community. I believe a trusting relationship must be earned and aligned with the board, the community in which we serve, and the people with whom we work with every day. Our vision must embody an audacity of hope. Hope for change, hope for unity in our community, and hope for a better future in spite of our current challenges. After reading and reflecting the 6 themes presented by the board and the community, my vision is to transform East Baton Rouge Parish School System into the fastest improving urban school system in Louisiana, if not the country. And we do this by building a culture of trust and stewardship. I believe there are 3 stewardships of trust and inspiration that all leaders must consider when rebuilding or building trust. They are modeling, trusting, and inspiring. Stephen Covey wrote, "A fundamental belief of trust and inspiring leaders is that leadership is stewardship." Put another way, leaders are stewards. Stewardship is a job of trust. Stewardship is a responsibility that implies the highest level of trust or being entrusted. When we have a stewardship mindset, we have been given a job to do, and we've been entrusted to see it through. Trust is building up on relationships. I believe that when we connect with people, it creates a sense of caring and purpose. In addition to people, we must connect to purpose. As leaders, we must create a sense of purpose, meaning, and contributions by everyone in the district and community. How do we do this? We do this by aligning our systems, processes, and procedures. We have systematic goal settings and tracking. We foster ownership with all employees and community members. We hold leaders accountable. We support and celebrate educators and administrators. And we must also inspire, not merely motivate people. We must focus on the well-being of the person and the community. And lastly, we must create a culture that addresses inequality, organizational inefficiencies, and establish a common performance standards, all while prioritizing stakeholder input and responding attentively to the needs and concerns of all community members. Simply put, we must do this together. While both are slightly different and have different responsibilities, they both must complement each other. And they're critical to each other in order to be able to help students and the district be successful. There are several policies that give the board specific authority, power, and responsibilities. I'm referring specifically to policies ABA and ABB, whereas superintendent's authorities are governed by Act 1. With policy ABA, the school board is a legislative, evaluative, and judicial body, and is responsible for the operation and improvement of public education. As a legislative body, the board has the authority to determine and establish policies and to evaluate their effectiveness. It also evaluates and acts upon recommendations, concerns, and the progress and improvement of schools. Knowledge of educational principles and policies by the board is essential in making decisions and resolving issues. The function of the board is not to operate schools, but to see that they are operated from the best interests of children and taxpayers within the provisions of Louisiana law. The final responsibility for educational planning rests with the board. The school board may also make recommendations and regulations for its own government not inconsistent with state and federal law or with the regulations of the Louisiana Board of Elementary and Secondary Education, also known as BESE, as it may deem proper. Members of the board have authority only when acting as a board when called legally into session. The board shall not be bound in any way by any statement or action on the part of any individual board member except when statements or action is pursuant to specific instructions of the board. The superintendent is also a member of the legislative body of the board, and he or she has the role of secretary-treasurer as well as the CEO of the board. They have the authority to not only maintain the minutes of the board, but also has a responsibility and duty to ensure that they are working financially, to ensure that all finances are in place and ready for board action. So they have a responsibility together. So I would say to you that, again, both have separate responsibilities, but it's critically important that they work together for the best interests of the children of East Baton Rouge, as well as the community of East Baton Rouge Parish. How would I handle a situation where there's a disagreement between the board and the superintendent? Before we get there, I think it's critically important that the board, as well as the superintendent, have an opportunity to be able to work together to develop expectations for each other and how we were going to communicate and how we are going to resolve issues that may arise regarding disagreements. If that is done ahead of time, this will facilitate a much smoother transition when there are conflicts. While we know that a board of 9 will have different viewpoints because they represent their constituents, and they have to be able to respond appropriately to their constituency, whereas the superintendent responds to the board, and there will be disagreements. I believe that when those things arise, it's critically important that the superintendent and either members of the board or the board itself have an opportunity to sit down together and be able to try to resolve this conflict. How do we do this? We do this by having retreats. We do this by having one-on-one meetings. We do this by having small group sessions. We do this by having opportunities to work together and get to know each other. Because when we understand what the expectations are of each other, resolving conflicts becomes second nature. That's just part of the process of being able to make decisions. So I believe that in order to resolve it, we have to have a relationship together, to be able to understand our needs and wants, to be able to understand how we communicate effectively together, whether it's via email, whether it's in person, whether it's by phone, or any other mode of communication. So conflict is normal. However, we must be able to resolve them amicably, and be able to resolve them for the best interest of not only the district, but also for the community in which we serve.